Hi, guys, and welcome to week 13, another online session. This week, we've got two sessions, and we're going to be focusing this first one on the environment. There's a number of environmental laws that apply across Europe, and these are different in each different country. There's going to be different levels of protection and different laws you've got to follow. We're not going to go in depth on each country and all the different laws that are available in each one. We're going to look at an overview across Europe and see what things count to us all as trail builders. One of the most important things we can be aware of are protected areas such as national parks, nature reserves, other conservation areas, and these are always going to have some kind of specific regulations or restrictions on trail building to manage and minimize impact on the natural environment. Trail builders have to be careful when we're working in any environment to avoid damaging or disrupting sensitive ecosystems or those of endangered species. Sometimes it means we have to reroute the trail, or it means we have a limited access to certain areas of the terrain that we'd like to build in. Trail building can, of course, cause soil erosion, so we have to be careful on how our soil erosion impacts nearby waterways and wildlife habitats. We have to really consider the type of terrain, the type of soil types, and slope gradients when we're planning and constructing trails. Trails can impact the water flow, leading to erosion and sedimentation. Again, we're thinking about how we deal with runoff, drainage, how we allow water to continue running, perhaps using things like pipes or culverts, and how we prevent, again, soil getting into the water source or blocking off or damaging any kind of streams or ponds with sedimentation. In Europe, we've got a rich and long cultural heritage, so we have to be really careful that we don't disrupt any archaeological or historically sensitive sites or cultural sites that might be important in the local area. And finally, we need to consider noise pollution, um, particularly when we're in the construction phase of the project. Noise is definitely going to impact wildlife living close by and also people. So we need to be considerate of reducing noise construction and also considering when we're going to work during the day to minimize that noise pollution. The European Union gives us lots of information about biodiversity, about different types of protections, and a really good overview of that can be found by using the QR code below. I encourage you guys to go check out that European page and find out some more information about the different types of European protected areas available. Over 40 years ago, the Council of Europe's Convention on the Conservation of European Wildlife and Natural Habitats, or better known as the Berne Convention, was the first international treaty to protect both species and habitats. And it brings countries together to decide on how to act best on nature conservation. The Convention is a binding international legal instrument in the field of nature conservation, and it covers most of the natural heritage of the European continent and extends into some states of Africa. Over 50 countries and the European Union itself have already signed up to the convention and are committed to continue to promote national conservation policies. One of the best known offshoots of the Berne Convention is Natura 2000. 18% of Europe's land area, 8% of its marine territory is covered by Natura 2000 habitats. And these are basically about protecting Europe's most valuable threatened species and habitats. You take a look at the map using the QR code, you can see where the Natura 2000 sites are, and that'll be helpful to make yourself aware of those when you're doing any kind of trail construction or design work. The Emerald Network of Areas of Special Conservation Interest is also something that came out of the Berne Convention. It involves all the European member states, some non-member states, and some countries in Africa. It also now includes countries like Andorra, Norway, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, which have officially adopted emerald sites. When we're designing and planning a trail and constructing a trail, we're going to need to know information about that local environment. And normally the best person to provide us that information is going to be the land manager. The land manager is a key stakeholder. It's really important to communicate with the land manager early on in the project. This could be by phone, by email, or in person. Use your communication with the land manager to ask a number of questions relating to the area in which you will work. So we're going to ask some things about what type of species do they have there? Are there any protected or endangered species? Can they give us some photographs of these so that we can recognise them in the field? Are there any dangerous plants or animals there that I should know about? Is there any kind of protected or designated areas of terrain within or adjacent to the project zone? Sometimes it's really useful to understand what's going on in the zones right next to where we're going to work as well as where we're working. When we're talking about trees, what counts as a tree? Is it bigger than a wrist? Um, can we cut the trees down? Are we allowed to cut branches from the tree? If we are, can we cut them flush with the trunk? Or do we have to leave them with a short stub for economic reasons? What about the tree roots? Can we cross over them? Can we cut them? Can we uncover them? Are there any conditions to abide by if we do? What type of trees do they have? Are there any of those trees protected? Can you cover the base of a tree with soil? Certain species of tree, you can't cover the lower trunk with soil. Other trees, it's not a problem to do so. Find out when the bird nesting season is. We can't really work with our construction equipment during bird nesting season because it disrupts birds nesting. Do you have any ground nesting birds? Again, interesting and important to know, especially if we're going to be digging up any areas of the terrain. We don't want to interrupt or damage any nesting birds. Do you have a hunting season? And if so, when is it? What kind of species are being hunted? When's the foraging season for things like mushrooms, berries, etc.? Again, useful information to know when we might have people out and around in the forest. And when are our typically wet or dry seasons? And does that affect the ecology of the area? If you are allowed to cut a tree down, do you need to remove the root ball? Or can you use that, put it in a borrow pit? Can you just leave it there? Do you need to remove that and dispose of it outside of the forest? Do you want does the landowner want any wood that we cut to be removed from the trail corridor and taken out of the forest, or can we dispose of it within in the area? If we're considering an import build, are there any restrictions on import materials? It's good to understand the soil types. Is it acidic or alkaline? What kind of rocks they have? Also interesting to ask some socio-economic and geographic questions such as, do you know what the existing visitor numbers are? And do you know of any areas of social conflicts within the zone we're going to develop? Once we're aware of any environmental constraints, we're going to make these a negative control point. In our design, we're going to not go to the negative control points, so we're going to avoid these. We're going to go out in the terrain, mark the negative control points, and do that in person with the land manager so you ensure that you've definitely got those. Design the trail so it does not include negative control points and meets with any other planning rules or environmental goals. It's the trail builder's responsibility to know the designation of the area they're going to work in and any conditions that may apply therefore. If you're not sure, make sure you ask. Ask whoever's employing you to do the project. Maybe they can help you with the paperwork compliances well before you start. Put the onus on the client to ensure they have all the landowner agreements and permissions in place, and use your contract conditions in your written offer to assist you in this. Try to get the client to cover the cost of environmental assessments or studies that need to be undertaken. And finally, we're not biologists or archaeologists, so we need to hire somebody to come and do those jobs. Ideally, using somebody local to the project is normally going to save you some money, and they're going to have a good understanding of local rules and any history or environment that you should be particularly careful about in that area. First task of this week, task 5.6, Write a list of environmental factors and permissions that will be necessary for you to take into account in your own personal project. In other words, ask the land manager in the area you're going to work the land manager questions you've just seen in the slides before. Update that in a Word format to your personal Vic and folder, and the deadline for that is the 22nd of April. Task 5.7, use it in the Knowledge Hub to access environmental impact reports. Read the reports, build up your own knowledge base. There may be questions in the final exam based on some of the following texts. And finally, next session will be online, 12th of April. And remember, on that session, you're going to need some Play-Doh or modelling clay, a scale ruler, 1/100 scale, and some modelling tools. Good luck with the tasks. If you require any assistance, we will have the upcoming student support session, and you can jump on there and ask me any questions you might have.